Hello and welcome to the recap of how the league is going for me. Before I begin, there's going to be timestamps in the description about topics I'm covering, which includes pretty much going to ramble about how my weekend, the League Star weekend went for me, what I've done, what my plans were, what I would have changed. Then I'm going to talk about my minor build that I did because that's my League starter. In the background, you're seeing the Stormbrand character I'm currently playing. Then I'm going to cover that character as well, and telling you about my plans moving forward, because I'm most likely going to be starting in SSF. So stay around for that. Let's begin with how my league start went. I'm going to keep it short because you've probably heard it a billion times already. Obviously, there were server issues. They were fixed relatively fast, especially considering how many players are actually playing this game. And if you compare it to other ARPG games, the server issues would take usually way longer to fix. So they did a good job. Now everyone was pretty much in the same playing field. We all had our bad starts, other than a handful of streamer who managed to skip the queue, but it's not too big of a deal. They gave good advertisement for the game. Now I managed to get to maps in 16 hours. So I played slowly, very slowly, doing every zone like 5-6 times, like everyone obviously. And then I went to sleep, woke up, played for like 30 minutes, and then they gave the announcement of the fix. So that was like 12 hours, 13 hours in. And then I was like in Act 7 or something, so I managed to get the maps. Now at this point, as usual, I was leveling with Arc Mines. Now my plan for this league was to go Blazing Salvo. So I've pretty much played every other skill so far, and I said to just stick with it since I don't play Miner for long. So I want to play a different skill every league pretty much, unless there's a really clear-cut, very strong Mine skill. And a spoiler alert, what I learned about the invitations later on was I much rather would have played Purifying Flames again. But I decided to stick with Blazing Salvo, like I said, because I was only going to play Miner for a couple of days anyway. So when I got into maps, I switched to Blazing Salvo. So then I was just mapping. Now, the usual strat is just get your first 20 Watchstones, and then start bossing. But this league, after some last minute talks with a friend of mine, I managed to change my Atlas strat for a little bit, since now there's like those Atlas passives, which you can take advantage of a lot sooner. So my strat was just obviously get the first 4 Watchstones, and then just start farming Hayward Hamlet and get my the rest of the Watchstones there. So I only managed to get 8 Watchstones at the start, which was my plan, and then all I did was farm Hayward Hamlet. The passives I got were the essence nodes, so I was farming a lot of essences, and the secondary ones was harvest. So I would make a little bit of money from harvest, but I wasn't really crafting since I didn't really have much bases. The main things I crafted were jewels, and then also if you got those harvest crafts that are like change a breach stone into a different one. So if you change like an ash one into a Zolf's one, it was like an X profit. So you made a little bit of money with harvest, and then essences were selling quite good. Made decent amount there as well. So I just kept farming Haywork. Now the plan was to just farm maps in there until I was strong enough to do bosses, and then farm invitations. So like the Zolfs, the Guardians, the Feared, all those. So when my character was strong enough, I had a 5-link Tremorhold, and I felt strong enough since I know my limits usually on this miner. I decided to start doing Guardian maps. Now the issue was at this point, there was almost no Guardian maps available. I don't know if it's because the server issues at the start or what happened, but the majority of the player base was behind, so there was not many Guardian maps at the market at all. There was maybe 2-3 listed at a time, and usually those were not even worth running because I believe it's because of the Uncharted passive tree, so everyone wanted to run at least once to get their 2 passive points, even if you're not farming Guardians. So I think the people at the start just overpaid for them, even if they lost a bit of money. So it wasn't really feasible. Then breach stones were actually really good money, so I wanted to do those. So I started doing breach stones, and then I got to the invitation. Now beforehand, since last league I didn't play again, I didn't know how hard the invitation of the breach stones was. Now I know it's harder than all the other invitations, but at the time I didn't. So the invitation absolutely destroyed me, and I was like, what's going on? Now the main thing, it's not damage. As a miner, you have more than enough damage. The issue was the survivability. Since the breach stone, especially the hidden, so when the bosses are all there, especially if you get Ash and Toll last, the arena is full of everything that you can't, first of all, you can't even stop moving, and sometimes even while you're moving, you will just die. So that was the issue with that, and I managed to eventually do it, but it wasn't consistent enough, and it also just wasn't alked or anything, so I just did it white, which was also not ideal. So at that point, I was like, I'm gonna stop doing breaches. I went back to just mapping until Guardian maps became available. Once Guardian maps were available, started doing those, started making decent money. Guardian invitations was a lot easier, so I managed to easily complete those. At that point, also, I tried to do the feared. So my first feared, so all the bosses, Cortex, Chayula, Uber Edziri, Uber Elder, those went all fine as usual. But then the feared itself, so I ran it white. The first one I messed up. So I think in total I ran like 4 or 5, and I think I completed 2 of them. So again, it wasn't ideal to do the feared, especially since I couldn't alch it. So I just went back to doing Guardians. Now, Guardian prices started getting better, but the economy, it started like fluctuating quite a bit because a lot of people started doing Guardians. But I was still making consistent money, so I just stuck to doing Guardians. At that point as well, I did some synthesis maps, so those were pretty good profit as well. It wasn't like insane profit this league to boss at the start, but it was consistent, which is like the main thing. Like I didn't really get any big drops, but like every Guardian rotation, I would just make half an X, maybe an X, just from map sales and the fragment splinters, so it was good money. So at this point, I was pretty much farming those Guardians, so both Shaper and Elder Guardians, and Synthesis maps, since those were the most profit, so which is consistent profit, almost impossible to lose money, especially if you sold your maps. So the most of my profit was actually coming from selling maps, tier 14 to 16s, I was selling, they were 14 to 15 kills each, and then the Crescent Splinter as well from the invitations. Those were the bulk of the profits, and then you made some profit here and there if you got a nice drop. Now at this point, I had a few options on my build, so I could stay life-based and upgrade it. I already had a 16 Emerald, I don't know if I mentioned that, but I could still do a couple upgrades, get some more damage, maybe get some life, but at the end of the day, everything I was farming currently, I was already farming it. I didn't break any sets, so I didn't really see the need to invest in it further. The other thing, I could go low life, which is another option most miners do. Now again, the only thing that I wasn't farming that I wanted to farm because it was a good profit was the feared, but I only wanted to farm it if I could run it alked with 70 plus quant, which is a low life miner that wasn't going to be the case anyway. So I decided to not go low life, since even if I spent 20x going low life, you still wouldn't be able to do the feared consistently with high quant. So that was not an option. So I just kept farming here, and at this point I was like, if I'm just farming Guardians anyway, I could just respec to a much faster build and just do Guardians on it anyway. So that's where I went to Stormbrand. So I'm gonna play a clip now that I recorded yesterday actually, about my miner recap, so you can see that. So here I am, gonna about to respec to Stormbrand. So depending when this is in the video, I might already be Stormbrand, but I decided to make a recap about the miner, where I got to, and what I've done. So I'm gonna keep the rambling to a minimum. It's Tuesday night now for me, so that means it's like right about the end of day 4 of the league. So still pretty early in the league. So I'll go quickly over the character, but I'm gonna keep it very short since I've been playing a miner now for over 10 leagues, and it's almost literally the same build every league, no matter what spell you're using, which I'm using Blazing Salvo for now, but I'm going to keep the rambling to short. So pretty much the same skill tree, got this extra frenzy charge since I'm playing with charge mines. Everything else is almost the same. I think I respec these nodes and path it through here since I have more than enough mana, since I'm only using Herald of Ash. My jewels, so double multi-life on 3 of them. Managed to snipe these for like 10 to 20 C, and I got this one for like 10 C as well, double multi, no life. So those are that. Then the gear, obviously 16 Tremorod, which is actually pretty expensive this league. Just some life res. Now most of this gear I got it very cheap early. I got the old Tremorod is the main thing that costs some money. Just life res. And these were like 10C, which was a steal at the time because they're very good. The boots as well. I dropped a pair and then I managed to buy a pair with the enchant for the same price that I sold my other ones for, so very lucky. Then just flasks, the usual. The skill gems, charge mine, trap manage. So I've been switching around the gems setup quite a bit. Also, I tried to not change my build, but I'll talk later about the build and what I felt about it. I just wanted to make a recap before I switched to Stormbrand. So that's that. My Atlas, I'll show you quickly as well. So I have 12 passive points. I've done everything on this build, including the Feared, which a lot of miners are struggling with. Now keep in mind I've done it white and not consistent at all. I failed a few of them, so but I managed to do everything, get all my passives, kill all the bosses. Now quickly I want to go over the currency I made. So right now I just bought this jewel for 4x from a friend of mine, which he even sold it to me underpriced because this is currently like 6 or 7x, but I'm going to use it for my Stormbrander. So I had 4x here, so I had 33x pure, like 8x here. Hopefully I'm gonna try and get like over 10x out of this build as well. Should easily. The 16 Tremor on the 6x itself. Now the other thing, my sale tab. So trade slamming an amulet did not work unfortunately, so there's 5x there. And then I dropped this ring, but I don't think it's gonna sell anytime soon. But it's a full non-hit and a 2 good Herald of Purity mods, so maybe a week later or something this might sell. And I also got 2 power charge rings, which is the main reason I want to really switch and play Stormbrand as well. I managed to buy these for 15x each, so it's 30x right there. And I have these good boots. And then I have a couple of things here and there selling, but those are the big things. So maybe if I sold everything and didn't buy the power charge rings, I could get a Headhunter, but nothing else. But instead of going for a Headhunter, I decided to just switch and make the build feel pretty good without Headhunter, and then farm Headhunter while playing the build itself. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully I don't regret and go back to the miner. So some feedback on my miner that I might have changed now that I know better. So mainly, this is mainly for invitation farming. So if you're not farming invitations, so even any other boss, it doesn't really matter. You can play Blazing Salvo, you can play any mine. But for invitations, the main thing in there that I've noticed is you're not insta-shotting every single boss in there. So when you're actually fighting the bosses, they move a lot around a lot. Which for Blazing Salvo, the same way that Pyroclast mines work, is very bad, since the little pods, the projectiles, when they start falling on the floor, if the boss moved, you're dealing no damage at all. So I think Purifying Flame would have been my ideal mine this league. Or even Ball Lightning or something that actually targets. So Purifying Flame would just keep following, and it also shoots the ripple effect on calm ground. So you pretty much have a lot more consistent damage than Blazing Salvo would against those bosses. And the other thing also, so I've been gem swapping quite a lot, and the setup I ended with was pretty much the most damage I was doing, I think, for single target at least. It did not feel great for mapping though, since I wasn't using Swift Assembly or Minefield. Now, I'm not a fan of Swift Assembly usually, endgame anyway. I think I almost never use it. But usually I want to use Minefield. The issue with Minefield is it feels really bad if you don't have a lot of mine throwing speed to neglect that issue. Which this time around I didn't build any mine throwing speed, so it wasn't really viable for me to put in a Minefield without changing my skill tree a lot. And my items. So ideally, I think I would recommend, if you're just starting off, to go for a minefield approach and get a lot more mine throwing speed. Get extra mine throwing speed on the tree, get it on your amulet, you can get it on your helm, I think. So that would be the ideal option. But again, you can mess around with the gems a lot. I think I had a lot of different gem setups, and I was doing the bosses just fine on all of them. It was more so about how it felt. So I also want to weigh in because I've heard a few people talk about how they're Blazing Salvo or whatever not been sequencing correctly. No, I've not played Blazing Salvo in the past, but I've been playing Miner for over 10 leagues now. So in my opinion, this has always been the case with sequencing your mines. Now, I'm also not the type of player that will deep delve into every single issue and find out the exact cause, what's doing it, how does it work, and stuff like that. So usually, if I'm killing the boss, I'm killing the boss. But other than Pyroclast mine, it's always been the case that sometimes your mine sequencing is kind of clunky, doesn't work, doesn't chain properly. Now, just from experience, I do believe this is caused because from how far your mines are apart, or from how far you as a player are away from your mines. I don't know exactly how it works, but usually I do see this issue. It will be a lot more there if, say, for example, you're playing with Minefield and you have like AoE or something. So if you're playing with Minefield and a skill, again, other than Pyroclast Mine, you will have a lot more sequence fails than if, say, you were just doing your regular mines that are all on top of each other, and you as a player, your character itself is also near them. You will have a lot less issues with your sequencing. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it. I'm still one-shotting most bosses very easily, and the damage lack on invitations is definitely not because of that. It's more so that you can't really just sit there and throw mines while you're taking damage because you will just die. But either way, I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm about to go in-game and talk about my Stormbrand character and my plans moving forward. So here we are in game. Now, before I go over my character, which is obviously Stormbrand, I had a few builds in mind, so I'll quickly talk about them and their pros and cons. So obviously Stormbrand, the one I went with, very good clear, very good single target as well, and survivability. If you build it correctly and you have like, I'd say over 3.5k life is where you want to be. Usually you should be fine. Now, this won't be like the immortal build. You will still die here and there, but as you can see, I'm actually leveling, which on my miner I was permanently level 91 for pretty much the whole league. So it's a pretty good build. Um, Now, the other builds I want to do, so I was thinking about doing some Ignite Pro Live build, which I tried to stay away from that build since, first of all, I've never done a build with that template, so I think I wouldn't have built it properly with all the needs I wanted. The other thing as well is I've seen a couple builds of people doing it. I think Captain Lance is the guy who usually plays RF with Ignite, so probably a good place to start is looking at his videos. Now, for me personally, I think he was moving a bit too slow with the RF, but the damage and the clear was absolutely insane, so check it out there. The damage as in for clearing maps, I don't know how the single target will hold up. I think it's a bit lackluster as well. But also I have a friend here, Demon1231. His profile is public, so you can check his character. He's currently playing it as Elementalist, and usually I look a lot at his builds, so his builds are pretty good. So if you want to build like that, you can check his profile. He will definitely make it feel pretty good. And on the last build I wanted to do is Tornado Shot actually, since I have another friend who's currently playing Tornado Shot. And usually with Tornado Shot I always go for the deck stacking with like a dex bow and stuff like that, which I thought without Harvest and without an insane amount of investment, it would feel okay-ish, but not great. But then the build my friend showed me with Tornado Shot, which I will probably end up doing in SSF as a spoiler alert, but for him, he goes with a very good Fizz bow, and then he was like SNS chant and builds it out, and it ends up being actually a very good character with a lot more damage than your usual glass cannon deck stacker. So that was the other build. Now I decided to go with Stormbrand because first of all, I didn't really want to craft the bow. I wanted to craft a really good bow. I managed to get this base. So ID4 it has the fizz modifiers that increase effect, but it's a very long crafting process to get this to a very high PDPS bow, which is what I wanted. So I decided to go with Stormbrand since it's pretty easy to build. I mean, first of all, I already had the +1 power charge rings, which I sniped. So I had my rings other than crafting them, which was pretty easy. Then I have unique here, unique here, unique here, unique here, unique here. So pretty much your old character is already built. All you need to give was a belt, a helm. This is also unique, so my helm and my belt are my only two rare items, other than the rings which I already had. So I decided to do Stormbrand since it was pretty easy to put together, and I've already played it last league as well, so it feels good. Right, so here we are. I'm gonna go over my Stormbrander quickly. Now, first of all, I want to say that I'm about to start SSF, so that's why I'm not gonna make more changes to this build. But keep in mind that I only put this build together like last night, and I've only played it for maybe 3 hours or something like that. So as you see, most of my gems are still leveling. I don't even think it's been 3 hours, but there's some changes I was gonna make, which I'll talk over. So don't copy this build one to one. The main things I would change about the build I'm currently playing is you want to use Soul Tether, and you want rare boots. So those are things you want: rare boots with 30 MS, 70 life, and resist, which will make you able to use Soul Tether. Thought I mentioned that first before people copy this exact setup. But there's an other alternative setup as well, but I think it requires a bit more money, which uses Badge of the Brotherhood. And instead of a Militant Fate, you use Elegant Hubris. But I'll talk about it more in a second. So first I'll talk about the rest. So Stormbrand, it's a bit meta right now. A lot of people are rerolling into it since it's a very good mapper, especially when Impulse it's one of the best mappers currently. And also it has very solid single target. I've done Guardians, even I think the ones you saw in this video at the start. My gems, my support them for like level 5 or something like that. So the damage is more than fine. Now some people are playing with Call of Brotherhoods, which I think is not a good idea. Just freezing enemies when you're one-shotting the enemies anyway doesn't give you much, and you lose life on your rings and res, which is very big for this build. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, you have +1 power charge ring, that's why you're saying that. Well, even if I didn't have +1 power charge rings, I would still use rings with life, crit multi, and res, or stats I need. So I would use that over calibers anyway. Power charge ring is just something once you get the money, you switch into. So also life, make sure you invest decent enough in life. Believe me, your damage will be fine enough no matter what, especially with impulse up explosions. The main thing you want is enough survivability. Now you might think 3.7k life, oh, that's not much. For Stormbrender it is. Like as you see my XP, I'm actually leveling. So I do die occasionally, but I think I've only died once or twice. And I'm doing ultimatums, all waves in tier 16 maps. So there's that. But yeah, don't underestimate life. Also, yes, you have ES leash as well. That's why Soul Tether will be very strong. If you get like 1.6k ES on top of your life pool, you leech both of them, so it's pretty much effective HP. Because I've seen some people with colored brotherhoods and like a power charge helm, so no life on it, and they have like 2k or 2.2k life, and they're just permanently dying every map. So definitely go for life. I'd say 3.5k, 3k is the bare minimum. I'd say 3.5k plus is where you want to be at. And then some energy shield is nice as well. So as for the gear, void batteries. So these are a bit expensive. They're like 3.5x. If you can afford them, go for rare ones with +1 lightning gems, spell crit multi and spell damage. Even flat if you can get it as well. So you can get some decent rare ones with those stats on them. You can also use Storm Prism, but if you don't want to bother getting any rare ones, they're like 1 alch, but I think a rare one will be stronger. Next, so the rings, obviously, if you probably won't have power charge rings. If you can afford them, great. If you can't, just go for rare rings with life, resist, and crit multi. So pretty much the same as my rings. You would just have a res implicit instead. Next, the gloves. So obviously you were using Impulsa, which is pretty much an explode chest if you go lightning based, and you use Stormscript. Stormscript, these chain your explodes. So these are also mandatory. I have a weak on mine, but that's because I managed to snipe him for I think 5 or 6x. But obviously you don't need a weak on hit. You would just go for a nice res implicit or something like that. You can get very cheap pair with cool implicits. So again, the belt I'm using, if you don't want to use Soul Tether for some reason, or you need resistance stats, I would go for a belt like this. So you get the senses implicit, spell damage and power charge, and then just craft it with what stats you need. So if you need dex, if you need life, if you need resists, you would just craft those and use a rare belt. Again, if you don't need any res or stats on your belt, if you manage to get it on your boots, your helm, and stuff like that, use Soul Tether. It will always be better. But if you need stats, obviously you need to use a rare. In the boots, again, I'm using Replica Aeneas, but if you're going for the Ephemeral Bond, don't use Replica Aeneas. If you're using Badge with the Elegant Hubris, then you can use Replica Aeneas. I'll talk about the differences in a second, but just like I said, in my current setup, you want to use rare boots with 30 ms. It's much more consistent, and you can get resist and life on them as well. And the helm, ideally you want +1 power charge. There's 3 ways to get this, either from a corruption, from a synthesized implicit, or just from a warlord roll on it, +1 power charge. Now my helm doesn't have this, but my helm does have 120 life and a lot of resists, which is why I decided to just stay with it and give up the power charge, because I'd much rather get this much survivability and resists, rather than just more damage, since I already have enough damage anyway. So next also, so we're using Militant Fate, which gives us more spell damage per power charge, but we can't get Frenzy. So in the past, you would use Badge of the Brotherhood, which gives you the same amount of Frenzy as power charges, and you had a rare chest which gave you Frenzy on hit. Now it's much more harder now to get Frenzy on hit. There is an option which I'll talk about in a second, but that's why my current setup with Militant Fate, you can just give up your Frenzy charges, which the main thing Frenzy charges give is 4% more damage. So this gives 3% more damage already for each charge, and you don't need to get frenzies at this point. So it's a good thing. Also, it gives you your Also, it gives you your amulet slot, which you can go for Ephemeral Bond. So there's again 2 options here. You can either go for a rare +2 amulet, but to get a +2 amulet that also has life and stats, it's pretty hard to craft. So Ephemeral Bond is a very cheap unique, and this gives you so much damage. And also very important, it has a big res roll, so you can get up to 25 all res. So which is actually very big for this build, because you're using so many uniques, you don't get much res. But the downside of this is the 90% less power charge duration. So in maps, I think my power charge will last for 2 seconds or something like that, which is not as bad as you think it might sound, since you gain so many power charges in Assassin and this build in general that pretty much anytime you hit a pack, your max power charges anyway, so it doesn't matter. The only issue for it is if you're using Replica Inia, since say you kill all the monsters on your screen and you start moving around. Now, when you lose their power charges in 2 seconds, you lose all your movement speed, so you start going very slow. That's why in the video you might have seen me going pretty slow, and that was the reason. So that's why I would say use rare boots with 30 ms, since that will be up all the time, rather than maybe getting 55 or 60 ms some of the time. Now, if you do want to use Replica, the other option, which I think requires a bit more investment, since it's harder to get your resists. So as you can see now, for me, I also have all res on this. So you see my resist currently, and that's why I didn't switch to Badge of the Brotherhood. If I remove this jewel, I already lose some res. If I remove the amulet as well, my resist, I cannot get enough resist. So what I wanted to do is use Badge of the Brotherhood, and you can use an Elegant Hubris, which Elegant Hubris has a notable, so it's not a keystone, it's not this, a notable that can give 10% chance to gain Frenzy on hit, which is the same modifier we would use on chest previously. Now, first of all, already the issue is you need to get it ideally on this one, because then it's only 1 skill point. But I guess you can either even get it on one of these, but then it'd be 3 skill points, but it'd be a nice thing. So you need to divine them until you get it, and then you can use Badge. But then the issue also, you're using Indias. It's going to be very hard to get your resist. You need to probably get them on jewels or something like that, or you get better rings. So it's up to you which option you do. But like I said, if you want my current option, just change to rare boots with MS. That's what I was gonna do like right now. So go to rare boots, and ideally, if you don't need res, go soul tether, and then the rest is all the same. Skill tree as well, as you can see, I took all these extra life nodes. I took all this life here, all this life here, and this extra life node here, all these here. So invest in life. Believe me, you will feel a lot better about the build. Now you can also get infused on your amulet, so you pretty much ignore going to this part of the skill tree, and you can get a lot more life. The rest is pretty straightforward. Get this dex node here, if because you'll most likely need a dex unless you have it on your rings. I mean, the rest of the skill tree is pretty straightforward. I guess the rare jewels is just I got very cheap jewels, so just crit multi and life on all of them pretty much. They were like 5C pretty much for each jewel. Ideally, you have double multi or triple multi, but obviously the price goes up quite drastically. So to begin with, just get multi and life on each of them. Your large clusters, so I got Doriani's Lesson and Stormdrinker. Doriani's Lesson gives you, so Stormdrinker is something you want on both your largest, for sure, it's the best notable. Then Doriani's Lesson, sorry, is very strong, since that's what gives you Life Leech. If you don't have that, you have to use an Aziri's Promise to get Life Leech, because you have no other source of Life Leech, so very important there. Ideally as well, you have a third notable here, so that Doriani's Lesson will be here, and Stormdrinker here, and you can ignore the last one, so I would save 2 points, but unfortunately I don't have that, and I don't want to slam it with an Exalt. And then your other one, you just want Stormdrinker and 2 other good notables. If you have it like this, you can just ignore this and not take it. Vengeful Commander, even after the nerf, is still pretty strong, so there's that. Then your medium clusters, you want Brand Loyalty and Grand Design on 3 of them. So just Brand Loyalty, Grand Design, Brand Loyalty, Grand Design, Brand Loyalty, Grand Design. They're like about 1.5x or something each. And then you want one with Holy Conquest and Brand Loyalty. This is probably like 40 chaos or something like that. That's pretty much it. Digma Watcher's Eye, it's very budget at the moment. It's just Zealotry, 10% pen. You can also get Rat Penetration, which is better but more expensive. So it's just a source of pen. I think that's pretty much the build. Pantheons, because I know people ask, but I just FYI, most of my builds, I always forget even taking these, or I almost never upgrade them. So obviously they're not like insanely bad, but they're something that you can just play around with. Take whichever one you like. As for the passives, I'm helping Alira for my bandits. And I think I've covered everything. Flasks, Divine Mana Flask. You want a Mana Flask. Cinder Swallow, also very strong. And then just Quicksilver, the Diamond Flask, and Jade. You can use a Quartz here as well. up to you. But I like also you can use a unique flask, but I like having curse immunity as well. And since I don't have a bleed removal jewel, I need bleed removal, curse removal. So I need two magic flasks on top of Quicksilver. My Quicksilver also isn't even rolled perfectly. You ideally want experimenters of adrenaline or alchemists of adrenaline. But yeah, that's the build. I think the skill gems, if I didn't go over them, Rat and Zealotry is your auras. Flame Dash, Arcane Surge, Brain Recall, Second Wind, Movement Skill. You have a cast on that portal for the times you do die, a random portal. And then the main skill, Storm Brand, Swift Brand, Conk Effect, Control Destruction, Inspiration, and Power Charge and Crit. You can switch the Inspiration to Awaken Added Lightning if you can afford it. And then you just have 6 blues. As you can see, I didn't even bother getting all their gems in, but since I don't have the strength, I can't have cast on damage taking Immortal Call. If you have 79 strength, you can do that. Also, if you don't have any weak on your gloves, you would have a setup that's either Orbo Storms or Wave of Conviction with Curse on Hit and Conductivity. So that's what I was gonna do, but so that's pretty much what I've been up to and my goal and my plans. Now I want to talk a little bit about what I'm gonna do moving forward. So first of all, the past like 2 days or something, I've been playing a lot less than I usually do. Kind of burnt. Now, it's not because the league mechanic is awesome, but it's more so like since I'm trade league, I think is the main issue for me. So first of all, every league I do the same thing. I start as a miner, I push bosses, then I make like a more faster build for mapping, and then I push maps and pretty much just keep stacking mirrors until I get to the point where I find a really sick build I want to do, and then I start crafting for it, min-maxing it with harvest, and just spend like 5-6 mirrors into the build. That's usually what I go for. Now, the issue, first of all, the harvest nerfs. You can't realistically craft like a super, like you can still craft really strong items, but it won't be nearly as insane as it used to be with harvest. So there isn't really like that part already. Next up, 5 more maps are gone. So also like I don't really even need a super strong character to do 5 more maps because you can't even do 5 more maps. South Curse also being like gone. And there isn't really too many builds that are like standing out to me like, oh, I really want to play this and min-max it. I think the biggest thing in mind is Tornado Shot, which is probably what I will end up min-maxing in SSF. The other thing as well is, since right now in Trade League, what I'm going to be doing is pretty much just mapping. I mean, bossing is like still decent profit, but it's not like insane profit. So pretty much whatever I'm going to be doing here, I can just so easily do in SSF. On top of that, there's all these like notables that I haven't really played with last league. So all these like cool passive trees that you can stack and like do certain farming strats with. So since in my trade league, it's always about making just money and stacking mirrors. That a lot of the passives, even in trade league, I never get around to doing because I pretty much just do whatever is the most profitable and ignore all the rest. Whereas in SSF, everything else is a lot more, well, more so profitable and needed, right? So that's why I think the idea for now is going to SSF. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to give up on Trade League. I don't even know if I'll enjoy SSF. Maybe I just need a break from PoE in general. But we will see how it goes. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to end up selling everything I have and investing in like, I think I can afford a mirror and maybe some other stuff. So like even if I go for SSF and come back, the mirror will go up in value, right? So my build currently, I just price check it because I'm trying to sell it in TFT in one bulk. It's about 110x I can get out of it, and that's including my power charge rings. But I think it's going to be even more since the power charge rings, I calculate them at 25x each, but I list them at 40 since they're actually going up quite a lot, which of course is the case when people start getting money. These get very expensive. And then I still have some decent gear here as well, so I'm going to sell it all off. I have like 10x here, like 4x here, so I can get a decent amount of money. So the league hasn't been bad for me. It's actually been like really great. I farmed a decent amount. I'm very happy about the rings I sniped as well. So the goal is to just sell everything, get like a mirror and some other currency invested, and then probably start SSF. So we will see in the next video what I decide to do. You can also check my profile. Maybe I end up sticking to Trade League anyway, but we will see how it goes.